All right, cool. Happy to have you on the show, Roy. Super excited to finally talk to you. We planned to talk last month. It didn't go well, so now we are finally at it. Most people obviously know you. You're a big name in the space. You created a lot of good content. You have a very big community with people of all different sorts. And why don't you maybe start with a little intro about yourself and talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So my background, I got into NFTs and Web3 really early 2021, around February, March. I mean, I dabbled a little bit in 2017 during that kind of bull market, but then the bear market came and, I kind of left the space like most people because I didn't have that conviction. So it was really like start of last year, about 18 months ago, that I started getting in. Prior to that, I was a professional poker player for about 15 years. It was basically all I did from high school. I started playing my last year of high school and then went to that and more or less for 15 years, mostly online poker.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of poker players that find their way into crypto and NFTs. I think there's a lot of overlap in certain skills and mentalities. So
Totally.
it's not that uncommon. But yeah, I got into this space early last year, and I started like most people that come into it trying to make money and trying to trade coins. What is this NFT stuff? And eventually settled on NFTs is the thing that really blew my mind the most and was the most fun more than anything, honestly, at the time. Collecting and trading and rarities and like Z-Run games. So I spent several months just getting my feet wet and understanding the space, and then I did like a lot of flipping and trading pretty intensely for several more months, and then was kind of getting burnt out with that and pivoted to do more content creation and education, and that's towards the end of last year is when I launched my own projects, Zen Academy and the 333 Club, and mostly been focused on building them out and building the team this year there.
Okay, that's pretty exciting. I mean, yeah, your community is huge. We're gonna talk about this a little bit later as well. But how would you say, like, I'm super personally interested. How does your day to day look like when you wake up, when you go to the computer? When I don't know, do you have like a routine that you keep on checking off, or like what does your day to day look like?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty
I mean,
bad with
yeah.
routines.
Okay.
I've tried them in the past and been consistent with them, for a few weeks at a time, sometimes a few months, and it seems great, goes great, but I just never am able to stick to them long term.
Yeah.
And so my day to day is usually so I live in Germany but I sleep very odd hours, basically in a US time zone. So I'm usually sleeping somewhere between 3, 4 a.m. up to like 6, 7 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Depending on the routine I'm in at the time.
Yeah.
And so I'll usually wake up sometime in the like between 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay.
and I start meetings around the 3 p.m. mark, 2 to 3 p.m. So depending on
Okay.
when I wake up, sometimes I have a bit of time to take it easy, have coffee, catch up on stuff. Sometimes it's like literally just 5 minutes, have coffee, jump into a meeting.
Okay.
And then for like the next basically 16 hours, it's a many more meetings across like various different types, both consulting and talking to other project founders, internal stuff like we're building a lot at Zen Academy. Sometimes it's podcasts like this where I'm a guest. Sometimes it's my own podcast because I host or co-host two, and I have a YouTube channel, so it's creating content for there. It's writing content, and then it's I try and take a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours off in the evening for dinner, TV, hanging out with my partner, and there's breaks in between where I'll go for a walk with the dog, maybe go to the shops, try and do that. But it's a lot of work from Monday to Friday, and then I try and largely take weekends off and have a bit of balance there. It's more like light mode where I'll do like a little bit of work on weekends, admin stuff, but occasionally, like if I want to, like I don't schedule meetings basically ever. There are some rare exceptions, and then I can have a bit more time to just play video games and go out to dinner and that kind of stuff if we want.
Yeah, sure. Oktoberfest is also coming up, right, in Munich? So
it is coming up. I don't drink alcohol, but anymore. But my partner Rachel, her dad and stepmom are over here from Australia, and they visited us 3 years ago in 2019, the last time we had Oktoberfest, and we
Yeah.
went then, and they really want to go again. So we are
Okay.
planning to go, and
Okay.
we
Nice. Nice. Nice.
booked out a few days. We're gonna do some day trips around and
Are
have
you
some
guys
fun.
gonna wear the traditional clothing there, or like
I think
lederhosen and
so,
dirndl?
actually. So
Yeah.
last time I didn't, but my partner, she has a dirndl. I don't
Okay.
have lederhosen. I want to get some. I think it'd be cool to have. So yeah,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to go shopping ahead
Yeah. Of
of
course.
Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice, exciting. And you said you're joining a lot of, or you have a lot of meetings, you have a lot of get-togethers. How are you making sure that they are productive? Because, like, when they are not well planned, I think they can be a time killer. They can be annoying, and if you jump from meeting to meeting, I think you need to make sure that they are well organized beforehand, right? Do you have like
Yeah, absolutely.
how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's all a learning process for me
True.
because 18 month professional poker player, I never had meetings. Like I never
True.
used a calendar really.
Yeah.
I love calendars. They're great. And I'd
Yeah.
tried them before, but even in the past when I'd use a calendar, it'd be like, you look at my week and it's like, all right, so Thursday's lunch. All
Yeah.
right, and that's it for the week. Or Saturday we go out for dinner.
Yeah.
And but now it's yeah, so I'm learning how to structure things more appropriately, and I am not a fan of meetings that are like time wastes. And
Of course.
unfortunately just never found myself in a position where I'm in those meetings
Hmm.
much, if at all, because I guess being founder, being the uh, boss, for lack of a better term, I get to say, we're going to have a lot of meetings, we're not going to have a lot of meetings. And like we have one weekly team meeting on a
Okay.
Monday, and then, maybe a handful of satellite meetings with
Yeah.
people, but we try and do as much like async
Of course.
chat
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we can. And then a lot of my other meetings are like the 333 Club is one of my communities, and
True.
part of the, I guess, utility you could say for that is I have a Calendly that because mostly project founders in there, they can book out a 30-minute slot and ask questions about their project, and we can go through them. And it used to be I had like every day of the week a few hours set up, but now I've really set it up so there's Tuesdays and Fridays, there's a few hour blocked out for that. So then I just go from one to another, but it's very much in the mindset of talking to founders,
Of course.
and I don't have to shift back and forth from internal meetings to those types. And
Okay.
so I'm working more on trying to structure certain days of the week to be like maybe Wednesdays are for me creating content, and then Tuesdays and Fridays are them, and Mondays and Thursdays
Okay.
are for internal stuff, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And yeah, with the 333 Club, it's a community which has more access, let's say, to you. And as you already said, they have the option to book 30 minutes meetings. And do they have the option to do that on the ongoing basis, or as much as they need
Yeah,
it? Or, I mean,
it's
yeah.
when I first started. Sorry, my dog is just jumping up onto my table right now.
No worries.
I Yeah, when I started in November last year, it didn't sell out instantly. It was really a slow, gradual mint out. It
I
took
remember.
several
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
which is a blessing in
I
disguise.
wish I
And so,
minted.
yeah, I reached out to a lot of people who were actually
Yeah.
thinking about minting and then ended up not minting, and then they've reached back out and saying
Yeah.
that they wish they had. But anyway, it was basically a first come first serve,
course.
and book as many as you want and be reasonable, and no one like abused it and booked like a call every day or
Of course.
even every week really. But then now as we filled up and we have 333 members, I had to implement more structure. So I basically just limited to one per month, one call
Okay.
per month. And I mean, we're in a bear market and a
course.
lot of the people are busy. Not everyone does have a project and needs time. So, yeah, all my slots, they don't get booked out, even though it's
They're
not
there.
that much time. So
Yeah.
but it's available there. And I think that I honestly, I love it. I think it's a great way for me to get to know the community better, to learn about their projects, to learn about the market. And I feel like it's mutually beneficial. It's not something I dread. I look forward to
course.
those meetings, and I miss them when I don't have them if I'm traveling. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, let's. We are already at it with your Zen Academy and the questions. We are already at it. But how did you basically decide that you want to do like a community and maybe not a PFP NFT project from the get go? And what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, so launching in November last year, but I was planning and working on it in September and October. The market was just flooded with PFP projects. Like, I mean,
That's true.
it is as well now, but I basically felt, well, we don't need another PFP project. It's just I can't offer something unique, and I didn't want to like I went in with the approach of under promise over deliver. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
to do something grand at that time. I've since like set my sights a bit higher now, but I was just trying to figure it out, and I was really just experimenting with a way of monetizing and using Web3 to compensate a content creator and an
Okay.
advisor and a consultant because again I'd been flipping a lot and I was
Mm-hmm.
finding success in it, but I was getting burnt out. And I thought, well, the traditional ways a content creator might monetize in Web2
Mm-hmm.
is you have Patreon where people pay monthly, you have a YouTube account or whatever, you run paid promotions and ads. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but I just it felt wrong for me to do that in a
Mm-hmm.
Web3 space for the most part, especially at that time. Now I think the space is maturing and we're seeing a lot of the more traditional revenue models enter Web3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
But back then I thought, well, maybe I can just come up with some sort of membership
Okay.
token
Yeah.
club access thing. It had been done before. Gary Vee is probably the most famous example
Of course.
back then. And but then like Metaverse HQ, like these private Discords, alpha clubs, they're all
Mm-hmm.
around now, but back then they were pretty rare as well.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea behind it. And I thought, well, let me just do something really basic and start here instead of like planning and for the world. I'll just
Mm-hmm.
launch a membership token or two rather and build up from there.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea for Zen Academy, and the 333 was much the same, except it came from the fact that I'd been consulting and advising projects and had way more inbound requests than I could handle and deal with. And so I thought, let me create this sort of middle ground option for people who want advice and consulting,
Mm-hmm.
as well as hopefully create a community where each they could help each other. And I think, it's been a year, almost a year now, and some of the connections people have made in there and the friendships and the business relationships are just fantastic to see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all working out. I'm really happy with the progress.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm part of it as well. Joined as in the beginning, like without having the Genesis token, but I'm on the way of definitely getting some because I think they're at a good price point right now.
Yeah,
And
bear market, everything's down a bit, but
yeah, but still up there. Still, most of the time they were up like 10x, right? And right
yeah,
now
I mean it's still 6-7x from mint price, which
yeah,
I
not many projects can say that, right? So it's a
yeah,
win,
yeah.
big
I'm
win.
really happy with it. Again, I never planned it to be this project that would pump based on news or
Yeah,
have these hype cycles. It is always a slow build up,
of
and there's
course.
been a lot of work that's been under the surface over this year. And
True.
I think I'm excited to reveal the next phases of what we're building.
Are you
Yeah.
talking about your PFP NFT project or?
That's one part of it. So like on Sunday night,
Yeah.
it was 3 days ago, I was here at home and um, I created like an organizational
Okay.
chart of like
Yeah.
all the moving pieces that we're building,
Okay.
and the PFP itself, I calculated was 1/27th of
Oh,
the stuff that
that is going to
was on
come
that
out.
chart.
Oh wow.
Yeah, most of it is not NFTs. We're not going to be flooding NFTs in the market, but I'm really wanting to turn Zen Academy, actually the parent company is called
Okay.
Zen Labs,
Yeah.
into this massive brand and entity in
Cool.
Web3 that's known for a lot more than just PFPs, more than just
Of course.
education, which is where we started
Yeah.
out. The goal is to be helping people through various mediums and verticals, and I think generate revenue that is not reliant on selling tokens to your community or having
Mm-hmm.
them
Mm-hmm.
sell to each other and generate secondary market revenue, I think. So got big plans, and we'll be starting to reveal them over the next couple of months, I think. Again,
Okay.
we're not in a rush. We're going to take our time and do it right.
Yeah, I saw your yeah, your basically like your content where you say that it's made for decades to come and not
Mm.
we are not in a rush, so I completely understand that and I like the approach as well. Yeah, so I also with content creation, you create a lot of content. Many people are impressed. Like, how are you finding the time? How are you so productive? Do you have like a team which helps you with content, or is it just yourself, which would be like super nice and yeah,
Uh, I definitely have a team that helps me
yeah,
now. It was just me for the most part up until maybe earlier this
okay,
year for content. I especially needed the help when it came to video content because
of
that
course,
is not something that I am good at. It doesn't come naturally to me. Written content is all still basically me. My newsletter, all my tweets, all my LinkedIn, everything I post is
Mm-hmm.
from me. Uh, but when it comes to now, the podcasts and YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and I will basically record the stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's editors that will edit it, and I have team members that will upload them,
Mm-hmm.
write the show notes, the timestamps, help market. They come up with ideas and
Mm-hmm.
guest lists, and there's a lot more help behind the scenes. So it's really not, I feel like a puppet sometimes. I'm just, they say, oh, you should make a video on this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea. And then I have
Yeah.
to go and do it. But yeah, so definitely there is a lot of content coming out, but
Mm.
it's certainly a team effort. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Um, yeah. So regarding the topics from the people, you think that your newsletter or is a little bit different than the content you produce for YouTube, because they're, I don't know, like YouTubers, like the traditional YouTubers, they're kind of like catchy and stuff, right? With their
Mm.
titles. Do you want to keep it the way you already, produce content? And like I would say you're not like someone who is trying to catch attention no matter what, but you're more so like someone who's creating quality content, which is based on your very cool writing. I love it. It's like a story you're following when you read your newsletter. So is there any differences you would say?
Yeah, I definitely would say there's differences. The newsletter is, to me, that's my favorite piece of
Mm-hmm.
content that I've got. It's very personal. It's me writing and me
Yeah,
releasing it. I do it all by myself, and it's
cool.
long form.
Mm.
I enjoy writing, and I think I can articulate my thoughts in a way that's very comprehensive. And there's
True.
no marketing, no gimmicks. It's just, it
Yeah,
goes out, and if people like it, they'll subscribe. If not, they won't read it.
yeah.
When it comes to YouTube, that was the approach I wanted to take. And I was like, well, let me just do that same type of thing in
Yeah.
YouTube. And then it doesn't really work. I
That's
really
true.
tried. And like literally for months, we would post videos and it would just be like, I started, well, let me have conversations with people I think that are interesting and let's just
Mm.
chat about it. And because it's not flashy, because it's not catchy, because the
Yeah,
thumbnails aren't attention grabbing,
true.
the channel just didn't really grow.
Ah, okay.
So I've now come around to the idea of, basically catering to the algorithm a bit
Mm.
more and
Mm-hmm.
using catchy titles, um, hooking people in, saying things like how to make $1 million from NFTs in the
True.
title, but then in the content, tell people, well, realistically, you have to get lucky, or realistically,
Yeah.
there's no get rich quick scheme, and trying to almost like Trojan horse people into what I think is sensible, valuable content
Yeah.
with those catchy titles. And so just play the game a bit more. And that's sort of the direction we're taking now, because the hope is that if we grow the channel and continue to grow the channel,
Mm-hmm.
we we believe in the content we put out. And I guess it seems to me fairly harmless to have a catchy title if it gets
Of
people
course.
to watch the content, as
Sure.
long as you stand by the content. It's when the content is like telling people, oh, buy this thing, it's going to 10x, and anything like that that's financial advice, or that's incorrect, or that it's hype based.
Yeah.
Um, it's also just not me, so it's just
Of
very
course.
inorganic for me to
Of
create
course.
that
Of
type of
course.
stuff. So we're trying to find that balance at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Regarding writing, you said you love it and you really enjoy writing, and it's the most natural thing that comes to you. But do you have like any kind of moment where you just are in the flow, in the perfect state of writing, or is it like you can write anytime? Is it like the morning when before going to the phone where you're like very good in writing, or is it
Yeah,
like
it's probably the opposite actually.
yeah,
It's late night,
late night?
is probably, I think, because I feel like I spend the day, the way most of my writing comes around is I'll spend the day, occasionally a couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
reading about a topic, really learning about it, and then I will be like, all right, now I feel like I'm confident enough in writing about this. Sometimes it's not researching; it's just something that I already know inherently.
Yeah,
But yeah, for me, I get my best work done. Especially if it's writing,
yeah,
um, when I can just, doesn't necessarily have to be at night, but if I can
true.
just sit aside, my laptop usually, or sometimes PC, put headphones on, put on like focus music, and just sit down for an hour, two, three, and just write
Okay.
and eliminate all distractions. Otherwise, I find like for like my newsletter long form, for things like
Mm,
a Twitter thread or something like that, I can usually write that with more distractions and
of
stuff, other
course.
stuff going on. But for long form writing, I get yeah, I need to eliminate the distractions, and I prefer to do it, I guess, at the end of the day when my
Mm.
brain's already been thinking about something for 12, 16 hours.
Yeah, of course. And do you just keep writing, then edit, and or how does it go? Do you write it in one go?
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting and how it's evolved because when I first started out, my first 5 or 10,
Yeah.
I would spend 10 hours, 15 hours on a particular thing.
Yeah.
I'd write it, I'd research,
Yeah.
I'd go and get the right sources and images, and
Mm-hmm.
then I would send it to one, two, three friends, get their
Yeah.
thoughts, make some
Ah.
edits, and really I wanted to make sure, all right, is it good? Is it good? Does it sounds good? Now it's usually just I will sit down, I'll write for 2 hours,
Mm.
I'll maybe read it a couple of times, and then I'll click send, and
Okay.
just it's out there. And then I usually go back and people are like, oh, there's a typo there, or there's an edit that's
Okay.
got. It
Edit.
doesn't have
Yeah.
to be 100% perfect. I
Yeah.
think as long as the spirit of it comes across,
Yeah.
I yeah, it's a lot easier as well rather
True.
than taking 10 hours to write something. I still
Yeah.
don't write as much as I would like to. I
Yeah.
mean, it used to be once, actually two or three times a week and then once a week, and now it's closer to once a month that
Okay.
I write a big newsletter, but
Interesting.
quality over quantity, I guess.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the org chart you created? Because like there's gonna be like so much that comes out is it, and you said it's real life utility as well. It's not so much focused on the NFT project, which is like only a little part of what's going to come out on the couple of
Yeah.
months. Like,
Yeah, I'm not we're not ready to share everything yet, but
of
I
course.
can talk about a couple things that we're working on. Um, One is leaning more into the whole media side of things,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
that's the content. That's the like I have my newsletter. We have a weekly Zencaps newsletter, which is a recap of the week.
Yeah.
I've got 2 podcasts, the third one coming out. We have the YouTube, Instagram, and just building out more content and finding ways to monetize that content. And again,
True.
this goes back to like traditional Web2 models and
Mm-hmm.
doing it ethically, but I think doing it in a way that generates revenue for the business
Of course.
that's totally not really reliant on the community buying or selling our NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can find a way to use that revenue or some of that revenue to create utility or
Mm-hmm.
activities or benefits for community members who
Mm-hmm.
hold the NFT, then I think it becomes this wonderful life cycle where then they're somewhat incentivized, not
Of
directly,
course.
but like as long as if they like the content, then they'll consume it, they'll
Mm-hmm.
tell their friends about it, and it creates this large network effect,
Of course.
which a lot of projects understand it and do it, and I think that that's just one element of what we want to lean more into.
Cool.
And the other is doing more consulting
Okay.
and advisory work as like as a company and,
Okay.
and
Okay.
as like
Okay.
a consulting house basically,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we've seen a few projects do this,
Yeah.
and there's just a lot of demand for advisors and consultants in this space, and just not enough people with expertise
Of
to
course.
talk to. There's so many Web2 brands trying to figure out their Web3 strategy and come on in. And I myself personally get 5 to 10 requests a week to
Mm-hmm.
be an advisor for projects. It's gone up a lot since I went over to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And realistically, I can't work with that many of them, but
True.
I am starting to set aside more time to
Of
work with
course.
them, but also to bring people in under the Zen Academy, Zen Labs banner to provide consulting services that maybe I work with or coach or train, or they're just experts in various
Mm-hmm.
fields. Like if they're a IP lawyer or something,
Of course.
and there's all sorts of possibilities there. And yeah, really just going B2B on that piece and
Of course.
generating revenue again for the business that is totally separate to really the NFT at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps there's some discount or some, probably not, honestly. I try not to overcomplicate things, but it's still a revenue stream that I'm
Of
fairly
course.
confident just
Definitely.
based
Yeah.
on my personal experience. Like I'm now just starting to advise more again, and yeah, it's like consistent. There's strong demand. I don't
Mm-hmm.
see that going away, and yeah, it again does not rely on NFT holders
Mm-hmm.
to trade their tokens, but we can take that revenue and use it to pay our employees or to increase our website budget, or just
Give more value
launch
to the
events.
community, right?
Exactly,
Basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
launch events and do things that give value, like fun art initiatives, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that we can do, and it's all about trying to my goals are trying to build in a way that helps people. That's
Yeah.
the number one goal, and does it in a way that A, doesn't rely on our community to fund everything, and B, doesn't rely on VC funding, because
Yeah, of course.
I'm just really trying to avoid that, and I'm pretty confident that we can do it.
And how are you basically getting involved with those projects? You said you're advising. Is it then on a, I don't know, are you then getting paid for them, or are you getting a stake in the project? I'm sure it differs, right, on the project and the people. And if it's something you would love
Yeah,
to get into,
it
right?
varies.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it definitely varies. I've done sort of all forms of it, where it's sometimes it's just a percentage of like
Of
their
course.
mint revenue. That was very common last year, or NFTs, and
Mm.
then now and then there's the flip side where it's just straight up uh, ETH or USDC per hour
Mm.
or per month. There's a lot of hybrid models, and I think
Of
hybrid
course.
models are pretty interesting because they align incentives, reward the advisor, and even in the instance that the project doesn't do well, which, there's so many things outside of anyone's control. The market
Of
could
course.
tank. The project could just decide not to take your advice, and so yeah, it's all over the place. But I think we're planning to standardize it a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and make it a little more clear so that it's ideally one size fits all, and
Yeah.
it's based on an hourly rate type thing. But
Yeah.
we're not firm into that, and the bigger the brands are that we work with, the more flexible we would need to be. Like
Of course.
working with a Nike, for
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
like although they're not coming in, but like a Starbucks or whoever, they're going to want very different things, and you probably have to bid for that contract with a
Yeah.
handful of other projects, and it's probably something like a $500,000
Yeah.
contract, and it's based on deliverables, versus some smaller project or smaller company coming in who was just like, well, we just need a bit of advice on our
Yeah.
strategy. We want like 5 hours of time to chat through things, and it's totally different. So we're in the process of structuring
Yeah.
what our systems look like internally, and then we'll scale that, like again beginning with me on the guinea pig, and then we'll
Yeah.
scale it to other team members, and then
Cool.
bring external people in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's yeah, there's a lot of inbound demand, and we haven't even like I've never once aside actually October last year, I or September, I sent out being like, I'm thinking about consulting, here's a
Mm-hmm.
Google form. Aside from that, I've never sought out jobs, and people have just reached out to me. So there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
inbound. And I think that once we have a proper website where people can fill out an application form, or
Mm-hmm.
just email us directly, we've got an email set up that, and the person to correspond. Yeah, I really don't. I'm very, I guess, bullish on this as a
Mm-hmm.
revenue stream for the
Of
business.
course.
That again, it's just one thing happening in parallel
Of
to
course.
our PFP project,
Of course.
and it's been a long time coming, and like
Of
we
course.
haven't done stuff for ages externally, but internally we've been building the team up, we've been planning all this stuff, and it's slowly coming to fruition. So I'm very
Okay.
excited to launch,
Of
yeah,
course. Of course.
relaunch, I guess.
And regarding those help with projects, are you more so into smaller projects, or would you like to advise or already advising Starbucks? I don't know, and bigger brands like
Yeah, it's all over the place. I'm not
okay.
too fussed yet. I think we would want to have end goal is to have a company that can service everyone on the spectrum, and have enough people on our team or contractors that can work with them, whether it's a small company or whether it is a top 500 company.
Yeah.
I am working with, and have worked with, like some of the largest brands in the world, and but I've also worked with complete unknown
Of
Web3 native projects that are just coming up, and don't have the capital, and pay me as a percentage of mint. And
Yeah.
that was a year ago, and I probably wouldn't take on a job like that myself, but it's possible that someone else on the team might
course.
want to do that, or someone else who is experienced in Web3
Mhm.
and maybe in Web2 consulting, but they don't have the brand or the network or the reach or the reputation to find clients.
Yeah.
And maybe they need a bit of guidance from us. Maybe we can help them on the legal side or whatever it is. And yeah, the scope is enormous, and eventually I want to capture all of it.
Yeah. And do you have like a strategic plan on maybe also sourcing those kind of projects where you see there could be like a mutual interest for the community that, I don't know, would be like kind of tools or content for your community that could help them out? Would you get strategically invested in this project, or kind of like where you have the chance, or is it just like advising and then okay, that's it?
Yes, I mean, this now starts to spill into like two other areas
Okay.
of what we're doing. One is that we're
Okay.
already currently doing. We have like our partnerships arm, and Luca handles that on our team,
Yeah.
and that's basically for any of the existing or any product really that
Yeah.
has like a tool, software, and they want to like get more exposure, and they're willing to
Mm.
give our community a discount or free access or something like that. And so we're more than happy to work and find relationships that are mutually beneficial,
Mm-hmm.
that everyone wins and can benefit our community. And we're not going to stop doing that. And then separate to that as well, we have like the collabs that everyone sees, the
Of
Mintless
course.
giveaways and stuff like that. So we have a whole collab council, and then we have someone on staff who handles that entire thing as well.
Okay.
And that's another separate thing. And then on the flip side, it's like, do we want to veer into more venture capital where we might
Yeah.
actually, or like incubator or launchpad type stuff
Yeah.
where we actually, it's not just advice, but we're injecting capital as well, and
Mm.
we're taking a more active role. And maybe part of that deal could be, well, we would like our holders to receive significant benefits,
Of course.
and or it could just be pure venture capital where it's just an additional revenue stream for
Of
the
course.
business again. Because I, over the last 12 months, have been approached by a lot of people to
Mm.
invest in early stage rounds of pretty big projects, and
Okay.
again, it's about how can we translate that into the business
Mm.
as a revenue stream, that again can, because when I first got approached, and the very first time I did it was Looks Rare. It was the
Looks. Yeah.
marketplace, and it was very profitable, and but it just always felt weird that I had this opportunity, but most people in the space didn't.
Mm.
And ever since then, I've been thinking, how can we take opportunities like that and distribute it to the community?
Mm.
And initially, it was like, we'll create a DAO for 333
Okay.
for Zen Academy, and
Yeah.
I went through all legal chats and all that kind of stuff, and it's certainly possible. And that's one of the other things in the org chart. It's like,
Okay.
eventually I want to do a DAO or a couple of DAOs involved, but I'm really reluctant to do anything DAO related just because they're so complicated. They're not very well fleshed out and figured out. Like, people are getting better at it, but they're a lot of work, and but they are very empowering. And I think that it's certainly on my mind to eventually incorporate DAO elements to the entire ecosystem. And I mean, the long-term vision is for this entire thing to be community owned, and like truly community owned. And that requires no VCs, and that would require me at some point selling my equity and my ownership back to the DAO, and or figuring out a way to distribute it back. And then I would still have a stake or an ownership and a whole, like any other DAO member, and it might be more or less than others, but that could be 5, 10, 20 years out. I'm a big believer in DAOs, but I also think that early stage companies need someone and people directing the vision and being able to execute with speed and haste and make executive decisions, basically. And I'm wanting to and happy to play that role, and think that I'm well served in that spot for the time being.
Yeah, sounds really cool. So it's like basically making the community a part of investing into young projects, right? So they have also the chance to invest into Looks Rare or any other upcoming good and maybe lucrative opportunities.
Yeah, kind of. So it gets tricky legally, because if we get that opportunity, we can't just have people directly investing into the round, because you have to be an accredited investor, or you need to go through all these legal and tax. It gets messy. But if the company can, and this is still something that we're working on, and the corporate structure, but if the company can invest, and then if the company is generating revenue from that, we could just, again, it's not directly going into the hands of NFT holders, because that becomes a security and all sorts of legal issues, but it does potentially strengthen the health of the company. And if the company is healthy, there's more stuff we can do, basically. and part of that will be to the benefit of token holders, and it's to the benefit of them without us having to sell them more tokens or raise capital elsewhere. So it's hopefully smart and profitable investing of our treasury, I guess. So it's not, at least at this point, maybe in the future, again, we do have a DAO structure set up where the DAO can then invest, and holders or participants in that DAO have more direct exposure to it, but we need a lot more thought into the legal structure there to be confident going down that route.
Interesting, yeah. And regarding your team, I saw your tweet where you said you hired 20 plus people. How do you, with your team, maybe come up with ideas? Because like what you're telling me right now with the org chart and everything you did and you are doing, it's very well thought of, I guess. And yeah, look, it's like a whole universe of a company and including the community and everything like that. How do you find time to think of about the future?
Yeah, well, so within the team, there's sort of, I would say, like a core leadership group. There's 4 of us in it now. And we will have a couple of meetings a week on various topics. And lately it's been PFP related things, because that's one of our PFP consulting. I'd say they're the 2 things we're focusing largely on. And then there's a separate team that focuses more on the media and content side. And everyone has great ideas, and you know, all ideas are welcomed. True. And it occasionally, of course, you know, you can't execute on every single idea. And then in terms of finding the time or coming together with this, it was actually, so I just got back from vacation. We were away for, I think, almost 2 weeks, and I was not working too much, you know, obviously still checking in a bit, had a couple of calls while I was away, but especially on the second half, I think I had largely disconnected. But in my brain, like mind, ideas had just been mulling around, and I think it took that time to just have them become clear. So then coming back, I was like, all right, there's all these ideas. The various sections of the team have had all these ideas, working on this stuff. Let me really just get it out and then put it onto paper and make this plan, because it was a little bit disparate, and now it's all like really coming together. It's just really been, you know, honestly, it's like 12 months in the making, and it's very exciting. I can't wait to start to share it with the community. That's something that, you know, we've been dripping bits and pieces of like a little bit of hints about what's coming and ideas about plans, but I'm not a big fan of teasing, of course, and hyping things up. And so once we're ready and can begin to execute and share this big vision with even like much more detail than I'm sharing here, then and I think that will probably happen in the next couple of months.
Then your price of the token will go up, you say? No, just kidding.
It might. You know, you never know in this market.
Of course.
I would certainly not say that, but who knows with token price? And we always have to be careful regarding legal of course. Commentary on token price, and also just like when it comes to the business, it's about like what utility do token holders actually get? What utility will people who have a PFP get? And that's a tricky thing to figure out. Utility is one of the most widely misunderstood things in the space, I think, and we don't have the perfect answers yet. I have some interesting ideas, and I think that, honestly, who knows what's going to happen to token price? It might pump, it might go down. I have no idea.
Yeah, and why do you think that it's misunderstood, the answer or the topic of utility, and everyone, like most of the people in the space, understanding it wrongly?
I think most people still treat NFTs as traditional investments. Not collectibles, and not necessarily membership tokens is like becoming a bit more of a more understood and accepted narrative and use case, which I think makes a lot more sense. But a lot of people literally expect their NFT to return them money and in various forms and value. And while some element of that is true, and that has certainly been the case at some points in time, you know, a project releases a token and then immediately you get value, or they do an airdrop and you sell the airdrop and that's immediate value.
True.
I just don't think that is, it's certainly not sustainable. It's not sustainable utility. It's not realistic. and it's not good for businesses and companies to focus on delivering value to their holders purely in financial sense, because it's really tricky to do that, and gets, then you have to wonder, like, well, if that's your goal, what are you actually building? How are you generating this value and revenue? And what is, it's messy. And I think that it requires a lot more thought from various people and projects to really understand. And you know, there's the whole IP part of it as well. You know, if you buy an NFT PFP, do you have the IP? Do you have commercial rights?
True.
Can you monetize of that? Are you building a brand? Is it brand value? Like Doodles announced today that they raised $54 million in funding, raised at like a 700 million valuation, and they're obviously building a global brand. And music, apparel, I think they even said games and all these other things. Well, that's great, but then how does that increase the value of the original tokens?
True.
And I mean, I guess if they succeed, then these are valuable collectibles. But they're not necessarily utility tokens. Right? At this point, there's certainly not a stake of the company. If they, but there are a lot of exciting opportunities for Doodles to deliver real utility and value to them. It's just figuring out what that looks like. Like, imagine if Disney NFT, where you had or Starbucks, because they recently came out with their plan. I was kind of hoping that they did some version where some of them would just get you free coffee for like life, one free cup of coffee a day for 25 years or something like that, because that's real utility. But I don't know legally if that's a possibility or not. But stuff like that could be fun and cool. And I think we've barely scratched the surface on the utility piece.
Definitely. But when you talked about the core leadership of 4 people and how you come up with ideas, I wanted to understand of, are you executing on the idea yourself, or are you directly searching for someone who is doing this project, or is it someone out of your team you have that could fit into this idea to execute on this, or do you have your fingers in the core leadership team? Are they involved from the beginning, or how does this work?
So I have always we get a lot of inbound requests at this point of people that want to work for Zen Academy, Zen Labs, and stuff that we're doing. And I've basically, that's how the entire team largely got built. I never went out to look for a specific person or role, with one exception in mind, really. And that's our most recent hire, Momo, who's basically effectively CTO. He's organizing because that was a glaring gap in our organization. We didn't have someone who understood the technical side of things. And, you know, I have a bit of advice and other team members, a bit of knowledge, and other team members do. But when it comes to smart contracts and website building and all that kind of stuff, and security, we would always be like reaching out to third parties and relying heavily on them. And now we still do reach out to third parties, like for graphic design stuff, for video editing, for smart contract stuff. We're still relying on third parties, but we have Momo now, a person who can coordinate at least the technical side stuff. And for the other stuff, we have people that can coordinate with external parties if and when need be. And at this point, I would say I'm really not looking to add to the team anymore. It's really like a year ago, it was literally just me. And then even 8 months ago, I think it was like 4 of us. Well, no, I mean, that's a bit false. A year ago, it was basically me, and then pretty quickly, there was a relatively large crew of volunteer moderators in the Discord, because we started with just a Discord. And I had generated new revenue then. I had no way to pay people as a business or anything. And I didn't have plans at that point. I was like, is anyone interested in helping out moderate? And a lot of the people who are now more critical team members and paid team members, now we have no volunteer team members, everyone is paid, they came from those early days. So it did sort of snowball from relatively early on. But in terms of having paid team members, that really started to scale honestly over the last 6 months, which is interesting timing during the bear market. But it's just such a wonderful group of people. And you know, we have 20-ish people, but I would say a bit over half, definitely more than half are part-time. Like we're nowhere near needing 20 full-time people at this point, but give us 6 months, a year, we'll definitely be there.
Yeah, yeah. And are you also an HR manager, or how do you manage all those people?
Yeah, that's
Or is someone else
v-
helping or advising? I don't know. If someone's not doing their work, they're not showing up. How does this work? Like, it's also, you
yeah,
could say it's a company, right? It's a lot of
yeah,
people management.
it is people management, and I'm extraordinarily fortunate that the people are just incredibly wonderful humans,
Okay,
and there have been very few
okay,
occasions for any sort of issues or people
okay.
management.
Cool.
And I'm basically mostly doing it myself,
Mm-hmm.
and but I will ask other people for on the team for advice who have experience.
Of course.
Because like again, me, professional poker player, 15 years, I'd never worked a traditional job. I'd
Of
never
course.
been part of a team. I'd never
Yeah,
had a boss. I'd never
yeah,
been a boss.
yeah.
I'd never done it. And but maybe that gives me a bit of a edge or benefit because I don't know what the traditional structures were,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just coming in it with like this people first approach where it's like build a culture where people are happy, where people want to work,
Yeah,
where people like one another, where there's differing opinions but people are respectful.
yeah.
And for the most part up until now, it's worked. I'm not naive enough to think that this is going to work when we have 50
Mm.
or 100 people working. We'll definitely need a dedicated HR person and,
Okay.
and department. But for now, it's me with some help from a couple of other friends and team members.
Yeah, I'm looking at my questions, and like my questions grew during our while we were talking. I jumped into other topics, and now I have so many open questions. Do you have like 10 minutes more, or?
Yeah, we can go a little longer.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to ask you regarding the current meta and people saying, "Hey, they want free for stuff for
Mm.
free, and they don't want to pay." What do you think about that? I saw your Twitter post about that. That you are of the opinion that people should get paid, or I mean projects. But in NFT space and crypto space, people are used to free stuff, right? And even if projects keep spending their time to build, um, should it be free? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's too wide ranging to have a yes or no answer. I
Yeah.
think that it's sort of like free mints are
Mm.
one tool in a very vast toolbox that
Mm.
a project can or should use
Mm-hmm.
at various times, and it depends so much. If it's a meme project
Mm-hmm.
that it took 5 days to pull together,
Okay.
that should probably be a free mint.
Yeah.
And if the community likes it, and then maybe the founders are rewarded either based on secondary royalties, or
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that narrative disappear, but maybe they withhold some supply, and
Yeah.
if it's very successful, then can monetize that way. Versus, and it also depends on what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
If it is just a meme, then that's one thing. If they're trying to build a brand, if they're trying to create a comic or a game or this, that, or the other, then they need more money.
Mm-hmm.
And but whether that's again outside funding, do they go and raise capital? Do they use their personal money, or do they try and bootstrap that from the community? I don't know what the right answer is. I think some
Okay.
sort of mix is probably correct,
Yeah.
and some sort of hybrid is probably correct.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues with paid mints has always been that the community takes on the risk. If you mint out a 10K collection at
Mm-hmm.
0.1, it's 1,000 ETH, and then it all goes to the founders, and then you
True.
just kind of trust that they're going to do right by it.
Yeah.
And I think we need to see more, a little more experimentation and adoption of things like refunds
Yeah.
or on-chain refunds. Although those aren't perfect either, because then people
Mm-hmm.
refund the non-rare ones. But lock-up periods maybe for some of the
Mm.
funding that, yeah, there's various options that we can explore
Mm.
that shift that risk from founder to community. But I mean, on the flip side, it's like if the project does succeed very well, then the community can also get a lot of benefit out of
Mm.
it. But it's just, yeah. Anyway, I'm not against free mints at
Yeah.
all. I think that they can work very well, and I think we're going to see a lot more of them,
Yeah.
especially from like established companies. Like, Disney comes along, they don't need to sell an NFT; they can
Mhm.
just release it for free. I think Reddit's NFTs are free, if I'm not mistaken. And they, yeah, can just grow a community, which is one of the most powerful things without having to try and raise a bit of money. Because
Of course.
for a Reddit or a
They
Starbucks or
don't need
a
to, right?
Disney, 5 million, 10 million is a
Nothing.
rounding error, so they don't need that. Yeah.
That's certainly true. Do you have any advice for NFT slash any NFT tools, like a project when they're starting out, fighting against huge competition, trying to get to like getting visibility from the community? What do you think, should they offer their tool for free to get traction and to get people in, or should they get paid because they are certainly a team and a project that's full time on it, if they don't take any funding maybe from a VC?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I think that the free model, I mean, we've seen it play out in Web 2 all the time, where you offer something for free, you capture market share, and then you monetize later. I think that can be very effective in this space as well. But I do think that if you can create something that is unique or just offering something of actual value to people, whether it's saving them time or it's a tool that gives them insights into the market, you can absolutely charge, and you should charge for that. And people have been proven very much so willing to pay for good, solid tools and services like that. So yeah, and interestingly, we're seeing a lot of that come back to the Web 2 like subscription models, where it's a monthly fee or a yearly fee, which again, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot more sense than upfront lifetime membership, and then you're meant to just support it forever. I think honestly, a hybrid model is where it becomes the most exciting for NFTs, where you release 1,000, 500, 5,000, 100, whatever, and you're like, all right, these people have lifetime access. And then maybe you do another one where it's like, oh, these people have 50% discount, and you sort of like bootstrap the company as you go along. And then eventually, once it's this tool that everyone really likes and uses, you have a monthly or yearly subscription, and people are paying for that. That's ongoing revenue, and your early supporters are rewarded by lifetime access. They can sell their lifetime access if the company is doing well. And it's that, I think, is a really good model. And we've seen it with a bunch of projects. So we'll probably see a lot more of that for tools.
Yeah. And how do you think one should can stand out against the competition? I mean, let's say there are already like a lot of tools that do similar things. I think you need to be unique and provide some value where the market isn't there yet, or doesn't have tools like it already, right? Or
100%. Yeah. If you want to succeed, and I think this is the same whether you're a relatively new and unknown group or you're established. In order to capture market share, I think that you either need to be unique and offer a service like product market fit, that's something that people want, is in demand, and no one else is doing, and then you're doing it, and then bam, and you execute well. Or you have to take an existing structure and model and significantly improve upon it, but it's like an order of magnitude better, maybe two, because it's really hard to get people to break their existing habits. It's people talk about why isn't someone building a better Discord? Why isn't someone building a better Twitter? People have tried, but it's just the power of these platforms are the network effect, and there's so many millions, hundreds of millions of people probably using them, and in order to get them to move from one platform to another, you have to be so much better, so much different. That and the same concept applies to like these smaller apps and things in the NFT and Web3 space. You know, we have all these portfolio trackers now. We have things that will tell you floor price stats and alerts and stuff. And we're early enough that there is plenty of healthy competition where you can still compete and win a decent market share, and maybe that's well. But if there is an area where there's an incumbent that's already got pretty significant, like OpenSea, like we're seeing that a lot with marketplaces. We've seen LooksRare, X2Y2, SudoSwap now, and they're offering much cheaper fees, rewards back to holders, tokens, all sorts of other things, better customer service, but OpenSea still has 80+% of market share because of, and so it's got to be better and or unique.
Yeah, like a marketplace is really hard to beat. I read this or saw a Y Combinator YouTube video where they said it's difficult to build to get the people onto the platform, but once they're there, it's really difficult to compete with them. OpenSea started, I think, in 2017 or early 18.
Really
I'm not
early.
sure. So it's very difficult to beat them. Even if you are cheaper and I don't know, more innovative, because everyone is used to go there to buy and sell from there. So
Yeah.
Yeah, completely understand that. But do you think like projects should use content creation to also get some visibility, or what tools can they use to grow? Because only talking about the product is maybe not the right way to get the people in when you don't have a following, but maybe creating some content and which is useful, and also capturing maybe other areas of knowledge sharing and stuff. How do you think how did you do it yourself? I mean, you tried out many different things, created content, and how did you grow so big, let's say?
Yeah, I'll answer the first part and
Yeah.
say that yes, I absolutely think that people, projects, founders should, whether it's create content, but I'd say more of that it's networking, and networking is everything in everywhere in life. If you want to be successful, who you know is often more important than what you know, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And it's relatively easy to do in the Web3 space. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of time and effort, but spending a lot of time on Twitter, in Discord, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, talking to people, making connections, building out your personal network. That is a fantastic way to find success in the space. And you can combine that with content creation if you want, but I think it requires a separate and a more specific set of the skill set to create content effectively.
That's true.
And even then, standing out from the crowd. And so now getting back to like my journey and how that happened, I attribute a lot of it to like right place, right time, because I was starting to build my Twitter following and create content in like the peak of the bull market last year. And, you know, lots of new people were joining Twitter and then just following all the top accounts, and then my account just blew up. But the thing I attribute most of it to is that I was posting these daily floor stat spreadsheets on Twitter every single day for basically 6 months with business commentary on the market. And that was adding value to people's lives and saving them time. And I think that if you can find, and it was unique because no one else was doing it. So if you can find a way to save people time, give value to them, people will appreciate it. They will share it, and your brand will boom. And I was fortunate that no one else was doing it. There were none of these websites. There wasn't NFT Nerds or NFT Floors or any of these Flips.finance. OpenSea didn't even have floor price listed on their front page. They didn't have it listed on the collection page. They didn't even sort price low to high. It was just like really difficult to find the floor price. And so all of a sudden I started sharing this info and people loved it, and then no one else was doing it, and it just boom. And then, but now if someone were to try and do the same, it just wouldn't work. Because there's so many, a lot of people have tried doing it ever since I did. And some of them found some success, but no one found that same crazy level of blow up that I did. But there are certainly other ways you can add value and find a thing that people would like to learn more about and hear about. And if you can write about it and share it and be consistent, you can really build a brand out of your content that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are 5 minutes or 6 minutes over now. Thanks again for your time. I really enjoyed talking to you, and it was really, really cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a pleasure.